I mean, that's what's so funny about where we're at right now, right? Like, it's like there were so many there's so many warning signs of sorts, but it's not until something crazy happens that you can really pull the trigger on, right? But until like it's not like I don't know what a good analogy is, but like there are all these things that are leading to like building to this, right? To this disconnect and the divisions and all that stuff. And you can't like preemptively just be like, I'm going to be in quarantine or I'm going to just shut it down, right? So back then, you just brought up like a scenario of like 2007, 2008, like you're watching a movie and you're like, this is real, but like you were still like looked at like, no, it's fine, right? It's crazy town.
Oh gosh, yeah. Although I will say, there was something I was like going, I'm sensing this in my gut.
Mhm.
And even last year there was a point where I was working and I was just sort of like going, something's going to happen next year. I'm not quite sure what. And I was anticipating another financial meltdown like we had in 2008, but I was like going, something's going to happen. And then when we were all like shoved indoors, I was just thinking, well, I didn't anticipate that. I did. This didn't happen quite the way.
It's such. I remember. I mean, since 2018, a lot of people that we interact with, that like associated with. I know they're like, "Oh, it's coming, and how are you positioning yourself?" And then it was just like, oh my God, like I didn't this like that
Right?
sounds great right now. Give me that. Like where I can at least like hug people. Like give me
Oh
that.
my gosh,
But
seriously,
see,
absolutely.
Natalie, like here's my question to you though. So like have you always had that awareness and that like high level of intuition?
I probably did. I just didn't quite listen to it. It's actually taken me a while to recognize it for what it was. I grew up in a family that was very linear in their approach. You do this, and then this will happen, and then you do this as a result of that, and everything. And I was kind of an odd duck in my family, and half the time they couldn't figure me out. They were just, what is she doing now?
Because you
And
were like unknowingly intuition based, or what made you like that? What made them go like,
oh, because I really trusted my gut and I followed my heart in ways that my family just wasn't trained to. And so what they thought was me messing around was actually me really honoring this intuitive connection. And had I known more of what that was at the time, I would have taken it more seriously, actually. And I think that's also been a big gift for me as well. Just through my evolution, because I do think that a lot of times people don't trust themselves, and it takes a number of different kinds of circumstances for people to be shaken awake and to recognize this is actually a gift. This is something that you really need to pay attention to.
it's such a good point because why do you think we don't trust ourselves, right? Like because you see people, and I'm gonna be totally extreme here, but you see like aggressive guys that are like, well, I'm just gonna do whatever I want, right? Like they don't care. They do horrible things sometimes. Sometimes they
Mhm.
don't. But like you see that and they go, are they trusting their intuition or are they just acting on entitlement? Like why don't people know how to really trust their gut and like what their true want is?
Yeah. Oh, good question. Oh, yeah, yeah. You just dove right in, didn't you? These just are like when I just took the gloves off.
I have you on the show. Are you kidding me? I'm like, I'm not gonna waste your. I'm like I
Oh
look
my
at you for some reason.
God.
Like I look at you as like I'm just like, please make me feel better.
Oh my gosh. Oh, you're such a bucket of awesome. I just love you. Oh Oh, shoot. Well, interestingly, yeah, before I forget your question, because I will do that. So, I think the reason why people don't trust their gut is because I think we're educated out of our bodies. We're actually quite connected when we're babies and when we're children, and then we go to school, and then all of a sudden what happens in our world turns external. We've got to learn how to read, we've got to learn how to write, we've got to learn how to play well with others, maybe. We've got to learn how to drive, and there's all of this stuff where we have to engage with what's going on out there. And it goes on and on and on and on and on. And so by the time we reach adulthood or even middle age, there's a point where people are just sort of like going, I feel like I lost that sense of who I am. And the fact of the matter is you just ignored it. Let's go find it. And that's something that's always with you. And everybody has a sense of intuition if you're willing to slow down and see it for what it is and honor it.
That makes so much sense. I remember in graduate school, like reading about, I was doing a paper or something on how acting training, like theater acting training, can adapt to sales or in general, like how college students that are in theater programs, how they learn more efficiently or more deeply than a lot of other students, because everything that we learn, the way we learn as actors or as theater students, is very similar to the way we learn as kids, right? Which is through mimicry, through watching someone else, through behavior, through acting out, through role play. But at that, though, I've learned since that acting is the most employee, and no offense to employees, but it's the most like subservient. It can be the most subservient, kind of unempowered role in the theater, where unless you're like a big star, but you have to stand there and be told what to do and how to feel and do it every night the same way. And on Broadway, they'll get notes, like if they miss, putting the left hand up or something, like,
Oh, wow.
I mean, maybe it's not that extreme, but like, it's like, they get notes if they don't say the right pitch and whatever, or say the right words, they get docked. But, but it's funny that like, that the way we learn is really mimicking others and seeing our parents and trying to match the sound they're making. But in the same token, we're learning to fit into that box. Mm-hmm. Was that a thing for you where like you were growing up? Did you ever like flirt with fitting in a box? Like I couldn't even imagine you fitting in a box. Like, did you try? Was that like a thing in life where you were like, I'm gonna do the straight and narrow?
I did. I did, and I think that there was a part where I literally tried to straddle the fence, because and there have been times where I made more of a concerted effort than others. Like, say, for example, my first real job out of college, I got a job working in a magazine. And so I got an opportunity to write great stories and everything, but I was sitting in a cubicle. And I mean, you had to go to work at some time, you had to eat lunch at some time, then you had to go home and all of this stuff. And it was very structured. And I lasted a year. I just thought, oh my God, I can't do this. This is just not me. I mean, I will die here if I stay in this kind of field.
I can't imagine you in that box. Like that scares me. The closest I came was teaching, like at colleges,
Right.
where I could move around.
Yeah.
Are you from the Midwest, right?
I am.
Indiana, I want to say, is that?
Iowa. You're very close.
Very close.
It was the other eye.
The other eye.
One of them.
Yeah, not Idaho, though. We don't talk about that one. Dude, people are moving to Idaho? Like, people love Idaho.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's a lot of space.
Yeah. Iowa, not so much. No, there's a lot of cornfields.
There are a lot of cornfields, and actually there are people who are beginning to move there because they want a better standard of living.
Yeah.
And God bless them. It's a great place. there's a lot that I love about Iowa, but I think that it wasn't the best of fit for me.
Well, I want to go into that, like walk me through that. But it's I would say like when you meet people in Colorado that are from the Midwest, I feel like we're refugees and we're like, it's a great place to be from. I'm from
Right?
Chicago, like great place to
Yeah.
be from, you know.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so how long did it take you to so you're in the magazine,
Hmm.
you're trapped in this cubicle farm as it were. How do you go like how what would like I'm gonna shut up. I want to hear the whole movie
Oh
of like,
dear.
so
Oh
you're not
wow.
listening to your intuition, you're trying to fit into a box, you're in Iowa. How do you go from Iowa to Colorado? Like, and you're a dancer. I mean, like, I want to know, I want to watch the movie. Tell me everything
Oh my gosh. Okay.
as it led to you finding that intuition. Be like, oh, I'm right, I'm right.
Okay. Actually, one of the things that I started doing when after I graduated, I went to college in Iowa at a small school called Cornell College, and it was in the middle of farm country, and the beauty was that I actually became friends with all of these really creative types. I mean, a bunch of artists who were hilarious. Oh my God, they were so much fun. I just adore them. And but we would they sparked my creativity. And I was living so in the moment when I was in college that I really wasn't prepared for what I would do after I after I graduated. So I found myself back in Des Moines going, how did I end up here again? I told myself I would never return. And I got this job, which was wonderful because at least it helped it, or the beautiful thing about the job was that it helped me stay connected creatively because it taught me how to tell stories. But in the meantime, I would, as I guess, personal therapy, I would find myself wandering all through the woods. There are a lot of wooded areas around Des Moines, and and on the outskirts of Des Moines. And I would literally just find myself wandering, and that was a way for me to just completely let my mind go. And as much and during the course of my working at this magazine, the more I realized this really isn't me. I just this isn't something that I can sustain. And so I began to I decided that I was going to quit doing that, and I was going to join Vista, which was the Domestic Peace Corps. And so what I did was I left Des Moines, went into Vista, which was Volunteers in Service of America, or in service to America, and then moved to North Carolina, where I stayed for 2 years. And my role there was to teach kids how to improve their reading, their writing skills, and their math skills. And then to create a program that this nonprofit could actually help to sustain after I left. Did that for 2 years, loved it, and then and at that time I was loving North Carolina and everything. Very loved the culture of Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill, but I wasn't ready to settle down. So I had a bunch of friends that I went to college with who lived here in Denver, and I was saying, well, I'm not ready to settle down here. And they were like going, come out to Denver, see what it's like. And so I was like, okay. So I moved and actually got a job here in Denver doing the same thing that I was doing in North Carolina. And during that time, I continued to work with kids, but I also, I was also doing a lot of drawing. Excuse me. I was doing a lot of drawing. I was doing a lot of spending time in nature, going hiking in mountains and all of that stuff. And I think it was just little by little, I was finding myself just opening up more to that creativity, and not necessarily saying, okay, I'm trying to be more creative. It was a question of how do I feel more expansive? What can I do, and how can I be to sense and feel more expansiveness in myself? And I was also a daydreamer too, and so
This is the point in the movie. Like, we're making a movie. This is
yeah,
where because you and I, when we spoke last time, like, it was really cool. You were talking about let the music come to you, let the movement
right,
come to you, right?
right,
And I think that something that has always driven me incorrectly, I think, is like my high school theater teacher used to say a quote. I think it's from Stanislavski, the acting teacher from, like the father of modern acting. He'd say something like, love yourself in the art, not the art in yourself. I think I'm saying that correctly.
hmm
And love yourself in the art. I always interpret that as the doing, right? Love yourself in the being, in the creating, in the playing. And
hmm
then not the art in yourself being like, oh, I'm so talented. My voice is just my acting ability, my art is just God's gift to you people,
yeah,
it is a gift, but it's like, it's right. Like, you're welcome, And I think
yeah,
that is where every time I've been steered wrong or steered myself wrong from an intuition perspective and didn't
hmm
listen, was I wasn't waiting for that response.
hmm
I forced, right? Like we were talking before, like
yeah,
I forced it.
yeah.
So it's cool. So you really, you walked the walk, literally. You didn't just force something. You listened.
Yeah, yeah, I did, and it much to my family's consternation. I'm not even gonna lie. That's yeah, and that's kind of how I lived. That's how I lived my life, and I think that it can be perceived as being lazy, or we live in a culture that values driving, and driving and the push, and finding a goal and doing everything to get there. And for some people that may be how they're wired. I'm not going to say that that's the wrong way to do things, um, but I think that there's a big group of people that don't fit that kind of way of being, and I think it's something that deserves to be honored, because there are a lot of people. There are a lot of people who are getting sick because of because of driving like that. And actually, it's interesting that you brought that up, because after I got divorced, or I got married to somebody who was more of a Type A person, and I think one of the things that he found so frustrating about me was that I let the music come to me. and he was like, "What are you doing?" And that was probably an area of tension between the two of us. And then when I got divorced, there was a part of me that began to doubt myself and began to question, well, maybe what I was doing was wrong. And so I literally began to drive and push myself, after I got divorced, and actually almost got sick, almost got really sick, and there just came a point where I was like going, I can't sustain this. This isn't the truth of who I am at all, and it was making me incredibly unhappy.
Not, I don't. I mean, I'm sure there's other things, but a big thing that comes up when you're getting a divorce, I'm learning, is like the truth of who I really am. Right?
Yeah, right.
How long were you guys married?
We were married for 7 years. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just trying. That's a sizable amount of time to develop. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a cycle, right? 7 years is a cycle.
hmm
So
Yeah.
we were married 7. Yeah, actually 7 years before it went south. But I mean, it was going
hmm
south, but before she decided, like, all right, let's end this.
Right.
And it's like, it's funny. It's just impacting me now, 2 years later.
hmm
That, like, now I'm ready to, like, really examine. I'm like, yeah, like, what was true? So for 2 years, and my co-parent is not. I'm not blaming her. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
We've had really good conversations, especially lately, like as we're really finding the end of this, the first stage of our relationship.
Right.
And I'm about to move out and everything. It's been really cool to reflect on, because for 2 years, I took all the onus. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm a dick. I'm an awful person.
Mhm.
I was a horrible husband, all these things. Like, and she's like, no, like she's like, I'm not saying that, but I mean, she did say at one point that I'm not a good husband, but that was years ago. to be fair, so
Yeah.
she's admitted to her side of it, or whatever. Um, but it's amazing to me that the biggest kind of consternation I'm having now, or constriction, is like, what does it mean to be me? What does it mean? And that, like, when you're saying that, like the true self, like for you, it sounds like that is the culmination. If I'm being correct, if I'm accurate here, the culmination of listening and then being driven from within, right? Like, so
Mhm.
letting the music come to you, or the movement, or but then, like, how do you move? That's something, like, how do we discover that? Like, how do you know how to move? How do you know to strike that balance of listening and then acting out, or acting on?
Oh my gosh. Well, if I knew that answer, you know, yeah, yeah. Let's just be honest here. I think it's an ever changing, ever evolving thing. And I think it is in itself a dance as well. Because I think that there are times where it's like, yeah, I feel called to act, and then there are times where I have felt called to just be still. For example, this when COVID hit, there I was so grateful. I was really glad for that hard stop. But and I thought to myself, okay, this will be a great time to just chill and relax. But I also found myself doing busy stuff because I was in that work mode. Um, there has been a point where I have literally just told myself, Natalie, you can't do anything. You've got there was a point where I was doing so much stuff during the quarantine that I literally just had a breakdown and said, I'm not doing another thing. I'm not doing anything, and I'm just going to sit and I'm going to be. And then as things started opening up again, I just said, you know what? I'm going to work and do the work that I have to do. But when I'm not there, I'm going to give myself a mental break, because I do tend to be a bit more cerebral, and so it's really important for me to get back down in the body again. You know, and I think it's in being a person who owns your own business, you do have a lot of hats that you wear, and a lot of things that you have to think about. That's why it makes it even more important for you to really take that time.
It's so important that you're saying that, because, like, I know a lot of us business owners, like, it's there's so much guilt and shame around that, in a way, right? Like my co-parent, she has a job, and it's a great job. She's working from home. She's been working from home the whole time. Her company is super kind.
Mhm.
Um, and she just has to show up for. I'm not belittling what she does, but, like, she works like, she does great work, but and she's very talented. But there's if she wants to take an afternoon with our child, like, I don't think she has that like that feeling of guilt,
Mhm.
right? Whereas if I take the day off, I took a day off once this whole summer,
Mhm.
I felt real guilty about it. I felt like
Right.
I'm missing out, or I'm not going to make money. And then what happened? Craziest thing happened. I got really tired because I've been just going, going, going since March. Because I'm like, who knows about tomorrow, right? Like, who knows if
Right.
I'm going to make a living tomorrow? So I just go, go,
Right.
go. And then what happens this week? I'm exhausted.
Right.
And
Yeah.
there's nothing, I mean, not nothing, but, like, it's the same thing. It's like you're saying, it's like I'm really actively trying to open up and say, like, there's no shame. Like, I was telling you, I was watching a movie today for 45 minutes.
Mhm.
45 minutes that I wasn't playing with my child, or and that's been the balance, is I'm either working or I run up to play with my child.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
And I took 45 minutes to watch a movie today. So it's like there's so many, yeah, right? Like this notion of just stopping and being
Yeah.
still. Why do you think so many people are afraid of that?
Um, I think, why are people afraid of being still? Because this is my personal thought anyway. Yeah, 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 yeah. For what it's worth. It's worth the paper it's written
You're the
on.
star today. You're the star. So this is, I want
Yeah,
to know.
yeah. My personal feeling is that if we stopped to really sit and be with ourselves, we would have to face a lot of feelings that make us uncomfortable. It's really easy to just keep going and keep going and keep going. Especially in this culture that glorifies being busy. And we also live in a culture where we glorify stuff. We glorify money. We glorify all of these things that have nothing to do with the truth of who we are. And so a lot of us tend to drive in that direction. And I've been guilty of it as well, you know. You know, there's certain things where it's sort of like, well, you know, mama gotta eat, you know. But I think if we actually stopped to really sense and feel what we're feeling, you know, we would actually feel, and then we would also find more power to make changes, the changes that we want and need to make towards our lives, which could possibly impact, you know, Big Brother, or, you know, the, you know, big corporations and things like that. I think that there's a reason why. I think it. Let me step back, because there's a point that I'm trying to make, and I want to make sure that it's succinct. It does the corporate world good to keep us busy, and to keep us off kilter, and to keep us feeling fearful, and to keep us feeling like, you know, like we've we're not doing enough, because it makes other people money.
100%. You know, it's like when you think
Personally.
of, like, someone recently, I heard someone say, or maybe it was in, maybe, I don't remember what it was. I was watching something on YouTube or something. Someone was referring to themselves as lazy. And I
Mhm.
had this image of lazy as like, um, lazy is like when you hear like the boyfriend or the husband that just doesn't work and just sits on the couch and makes everyone work for him all day.
Mhm.
That's like the image I have from where I work with all women. So it's like they don't say it like rudely, but like I've heard exes, like women that have gotten divorced because their husband just out of the blue just stopped working and just didn't contribute, and then just, you know, absorbed and took, and then they were like, I'm done. So I
Mhm.
have that image, right?
Mhm.
That person, you're right. It's like there's this idea of like that being lazy,
Mhm.
that person stops the flow of corporate,
Mhm.
right? Because that person doesn't contribute. That person doesn't earn. That he doesn't contribute and work at a, you know, a job, a cubicle, a factory, whatever. And he doesn't buy and he doesn't purchase and he doesn't consume, and right, he just sits and just like he's like a leech on everyone else's stuff. So
Mhm.
he's not producing or buying his own stuff, right? So he's just a leech.
Mhm.
Um, but it's like that's very different than what we're really talking about, which is that it sounds like you're really saying like that what maybe is above our intuition. Like I would say, like I always think like the intuition's right here. maybe what's above our intuition that stops us from listening to it and really hearing it. So like you said, intuition, or you said the idea of like the changes we need to make. I never thought of intuition like that, but that makes a lot of sense, actually, that intuition is the changes we need to make that are authentic, that are helpful to our growth. What's standing in the way of that is probably the fear of stillness.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think of fear of stillness is, oh, if I'm being still, I'm being lazy, I'm being a leech, I'm being that guy, I'm not contributing to the big global economy or whatever, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's such an interesting, different way of looking at it. So if we're really, like, if we're on a journey to figure out, like, how to really listen to ourselves, correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm hearing is like, you go, like, go to stillness. Start there, right? And then don't be afraid. Like, you didn't say don't be afraid, but it's like, oh, like, see what fear arises, see what constrictions, what voices, what words are moving towards you, what music is coming to you. Listen to that, and then you can decide which you want to move on as it relates to the changes you want to make. Why do we need to make changes?
You know, so we can come closer to ourselves, because, you know, honestly, you know, it's so funny. I mean, I look at the trajectory of my life, and this, I'm on my third career. And not only am I on my third career, but I have literally changed the focus within that career, but within this last career, a number of times. We are always growing. We are always changing. We are always evolving. You aren't the same person you were 10 years ago. You know, I mean, you have so much additional wisdom because of the life that you've lived. And I think we're always saying yes to one thing, no to other things. And I think it's also important for us to be able to connect with what we sense and how we feel as well. You know, because there are times when if we get quiet enough, we can sense, well, you really ought not to be doing that in the first place. You know, or you can like sense that big yes, you know, and I think that's really important.
I always have this around musicals, being in musicals. I was talking about this. Like, I got a divorce last year, and I was in a musical, and that musical fucked me up.
Oh my God. Yeah, a lot of people have to go sit down and think about that one when they get divorced. I mean, seriously, it's certainly not for, it's not for the faint at heart.
No, but you gotta say. I mean, yeah, like, agreed. But like, I'm saying, like, and obviously I was projecting, but like, or I was deflecting and focusing on the musical instead of, like, that was my big post divorce act was being in a show.
Okay, yeah.
Like, literally being in a musical. I didn't mean it metaphorically. Like, it was a musical. Like, no,
Okay.
our divorce was like, it was very, like, our mediator was like, oh wow, this is the easiest. We just have to meet once, and you guys sign the papers, and we did it together. And we're like, my co-parent and I were like, oh my God, this sucks. Could you imagine if we were fighting about this? Like,
Oh wow.
sign
Yeah.
it, you know?
Oh wow.
But
Beautiful.
so we're fortunate like that. But no, but I was in this musical where I had to be in a team, you know, and
Uh-huh.
work with other people who are so much more talented than I am and more trained in this thing. But I've always had this back and forth about being in musicals because I always wanted to sing, and it wasn't until about 10 years ago that I found a way to sing. Due to a lot of sensory issues and insecurities and parent stuff, and I learned to sing literally 10 years ago, and then, you know, I've gotten stronger since. And so whenever there's like a show, I'm always like, oh, what a great place to just sing. And it's like, no, there's a lot more involved when you're working with a group of people and other artists, and you have to like listen and respond, and it's a microcosm of life. So it always overwhelms me versus when I do a show myself where I just sing to sing, and then I do comedy or whatever. I'm in charge, you know, it's all me.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like, and it was a gift to work through a lot of the stuff that I was feeling from like the relationship being over, and being back on a team. But regardless, like, I was, you know, I'm always so drawn to it, and I always question, like, I always do this every time there's a musical that I'm interested in doing. I mostly just rock musicals. I only do rock musicals. But every time there's rock musical, I'm like, why am I upset? Why do I think about this? Why do I practice and think I'm an audition? And many times I've auditioned and then dropped out at the end. Like if they called me for a callback or even offered me a part, I'm like, so sorry, I can't, something came up and I won't be able to do the show or something. And I'm like, is that intuition or is that just bad habit? And it's like, I never listened to all the feelings, all the stuff that was in there that goes like, no, I just want attention, or I just want to feel talented, or I just want the space. I want to do a show where I'm not producing, or I just want the space to, or at the core of it, I want to be part of the team, but I don't know how to do it. I'm not a team player. So it's always interesting to see like how those things have put me in situations that I'm like, I'm always stressed out and freaking out about. But at the same token, I probably never made the change internally. You know, I never looked at it as, oh, I want to do that because I want to change. I want to be different. I want to be closer to who I am, which you said, it's like full circle. You did a good job. You're like, we lose that as we get older and as we try to play with others. Right? So it makes a lot of sense what you're saying as it comes full circle. The reason that we do that, the reason that we shy from being still and all that and making those changes is because we learn in the first place to make the changes to fit in. As we get older, those changes don't fit anymore. So we're like, yo, I'm out, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's, I think it's an interesting thing that you say, and let me say too that I don't necessarily think of intuition or myself as making changes per se, because this was one of the things that I found that was the most profound to me. I think that for a long time, I thought that there was something wrong with me. Like there was something that I had to fix. And I think that through recognizing that I had my own tuition and that I had my own way of being, what I realized was that I'm okay just as I am. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to fix. It's, what, and actually, I'm the reason why I'm pausing is that I think that for a lot of times people go through some kind of event, some kind of life event, or we hit middle age and we have what they call midlife crisis, and where all of a sudden we start questioning everything, because all of a sudden everything kind of feels like bullshit, or it's like, what, this doesn't feel right. Nothing's necessarily totally wrong, but this just doesn't feel right. And you literally start having to strip away and take a cold, hard look at beliefs that you have, values that you have, just habits that you've like taken on, both the conscious and the unconscious, and then deciding for yourself, is this something that I really want in my life, or is this something or is this a habit that I created because this was something that served me at one point but isn't serving me any longer? Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So it's not that you're changing you, it's that it's almost you're changing the armor that you've acquired over the years.
Yeah. Yeah, or actually trying to let it fall away. What I have noticed about myself is that I grew up believing that I needed to affect what was going on out there. And a lot of people would have probably called me a chameleon, and they would have been right. Who am I kidding? That's what I did. I'm going to own that. But that's how I showed up. It was like, okay, see what this, I'm going to see what this situation calls for, and then I'm going to adapt into it. And then what happens is that when as I've gotten more comfortable with myself and just allowed myself to be okay as I am, the less I need for somebody else to change for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's initiated from within versus this idea of like, so like, oh, so let me, I won't, like, I think a good example would it be that, so you moved to Denver, and then what was the timeline between moving to Denver, starting that job, and then meeting your then husband, where
Yeah.
you started acquiring those exterior feelings?
Ah, well, it was really funny because I worked for the nonprofit, and then I was there for another 3 years, and then I went to massage school, which was the big dive. I mean, it was just sort of like, yeah, I mean, you take the gloves off and you just dive on it. And that was really wonderful because that really allowed me to get more comfortable with self, because when you are focused on the body, your body doesn't lie. All of a sudden, there were times when I was when I was taking classes, and we would work with our classmates. Classmates would touch me in one place, I would be laughing hysterically, not knowing what I was laughing at, but there was just something that just felt really funny. And then the same classmate would touch me someplace else, and I'd burst into tears, or I would feel anger. And that was the first time that I really began to recognize that my body holds visceral responses, and that there is a deeper connection that I have with my body that I would like to explore further.
I remember, yeah, like this is huge. I remember I was in acting school in New York in 2003, and there was one girl in the class, real cool girl, like totally awesome, like totally fun. Every day at dance, like when we took dance class, we were just in stretching, like just in the morning stretches, tears. And I'd never seen that before because I'd been storing all of my shit, like I'd been storing it all, and I'd
Yeah.
never seen. I was very tight, and not, I wasn't stretching, and I was 40 pounds heavier than I am now, and so I was not connected to my body at all. But like I remember how fascinated I was by that. That like every morning, just stuff would pour out. Like she was just crying hysterically
Yeah.
in stretches, and I was like, "What?"
Yeah. And I can appreciate that people would find that weird, but basically what that is that's just energy being released. Oh, a lot of times what people are what a lot of people say in the movement world is emotions are just energy in motion. And yeah, it's just something that you're sensing, that you're feeling, that just needs a place to go. And it's just something that's being emptied out.
That just made me dizzy. Oh my God, that makes so. I have to track this. I'm very simple. Okay, I went my master's from a state college. I just want to put that out
Uh,
there.
uh,
Emotions, energy in motion.
right?
I got it.
Isn't that cool?
That's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's just a completely different way of thinking. It's a different way of processing. It's a different way of being. And I think the beautiful thing is that or at least for myself, when I began to sense my life from that perspective,
Yeah.
I began to let myself off the hook.
And was that
It's
after the
easier.
was that after the breakup where there is going to be a lot of emotion? I don't mean to keep bringing it to
Yeah.
that, but
Oh
it's like,
no. Oh no. You know
yeah,
what? Actually, it was a pivot. That was a pivotal moment, because that was the moment where, or at least that whole event was where I had to unlearn old habits, and where I had to reconnect and make a decision on how I was going to show up, and really stand in my resolve, because there was a part of me that was really fearful of it. I was fearful of saying, okay, this is who I am. Because when you say, okay, this is who I am, this is what I believe, of course, you risk people who are going to make fun of you, people who aren't going to understand. Um, people who just, don't get you, and people who will tell you you're wrong. And I was fearful of dealing with that. And so the beauty of all of this has been that I wanted to bring myself to a place where I could really stand in the truth of who I was without being bowled over by other people's judgments.
Nicole. I keep calling you Nicole. Sorry, Natalie. I'm so sorry. I don't know. Everyone, are you sure it's not Nicole? I'm just kidding. Natalie. It's terrible. I'm not going to edit this out. I'm a dick. Natalie. So sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Natalie, I'm so sorry. I love this idea. I love you for that. You're so beautiful. Like, you're so great. Like, Natalie, this thing about standing in your resolve, I want one of those. How do I get that? I like that. Put me down, because my family, that wasn't a thing. Like, if you, even now, earlier on, when we so my co-parent, my daughter, and I moved to a house in June. So as of this recording, a few months ago, and I remember I had my parents over, and I was just like overwhelmed beyond belief. I have a hard time with change. I have sensory stuff going on. I have attention deficit stuff going on. Just in general, change is hard. So like I still like I haven't moved in. You know what I mean? Like I have my Superman shrine over here to the left of me, but like I don't have anything here.
Right.
I'm very essential, but because I don't like change. So I remember I was really overwhelmed, and they were asking me something. They were like prodding at something. And I just started getting really upset, not at them, but just at the situation, and feeling overwhelmed. And I was expressing how overwhelmed I was. And they were like, okay. Like, they just shut it down, And I was like, I can't even stand in the resolve of expressing my feelings. Forget if I stood and said, no, fuck it, you're wrong, or this is it, I'm gonna do this. My dad hit me once, not hit me, but like brought to my attention.
Right.
He said to me, he's like, he's Israeli. He's like, oh, you never said, that's it, I'm going to Los Angeles to be, and work in movies and stuff. You never did that. And I'm like, first of all, how would you have responded if I did do that? I told him once, I remember when I was 17, I was like, I love directing. I love theater so much. This is my life. This is my religion. This is my lifeblood. And he got so angry. And I was dumbfounded. Why would that? And he's like, you need to do better in school. Like, that was his response, The theater's stupid, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, but I found myself. I found my calling. I'm supposed to be telling stories and engaging with people and coaching, all these things. Right? Shut it down. So this idea of resolve, standing in resolve, was it easy for you at first to really stand in that resolve, or like what's it?
Oh wait, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think my face answered your question.
Resolve just oozes out of you. You're like, this is it.
Oh my gosh. Well, this is the funny thing. I think when I was a child, I had a lot of resolve. When I was younger, and then as I grew up, I began to question myself, because I kept on bumping up against people who would tell me that I was wrong, or that it wasn't okay. And and interestingly, I think when I can be resolved in some things, and there are other things where I have felt like I needed to have more resolve. And things where I didn't want to be challenged, or I was afraid of being challenged, and everything. And I think maybe it's because I'm in my 50s now and I have no more fucks to give. I don't know what the deal, But I call this no more fucks to give 50.
Like you've already given them all away.
Oh
Like
my
it's
God, seriously, right? Yeah, but I think that right now I have a sense of myself that I feel very comfortable with, and I don't need to fight with anybody over how I'm feeling about certain things. It just is what it is. And not to say that I won't try, and if I'm working with somebody specifically to do something that can be mutually, that we can that will allow us to both coexist and to work together and to be together and all of that stuff.
yeah.
But I don't find myself acquiescing in the same way that I used to.
It's funny you say that. Like I hear from people just about like how there's like a belief maybe that, oh, it's harder to get married later in life. It's harder to find your soulmate later in life because you're stuck in your ways. I'm like, not at all, man. Like I could totally see after this experience of just like not being a good fit, and the amazing amount of learning that we've
Right.
like gone through. I'm like, I think I see it now, like to that point where you're like in resolve, like I'm resolved. That makes me a better partner, right? Like this has been a big journey for me. Like actually that makes me more attractive to people because you know what you're getting. And I'm happy, like there's no ego. I'm happy if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And I'm happy to be wrong. Like I'm happy to, if you really are passionate about something, I'm happy to do that instead. I don't have to commit to my like constriction. No, got to do it my way. We have to have Panera for dinner.
Yeah,
So I see
that's a
like
big deal.
that's a big deal. I
And
could see
kudos to
50s
you
being.
for seeing it.
Oh, it's been a lot of. I have a lot of coaches that help me, and
Oh my gosh. Well, you know what? But it's also a process. You know what? Because you had to. I think this is the thing that I also think that people are challenged with. You know what? It's okay to fuck up. It's okay to have a disappointment. It's okay for things to not work out. There's a lot to learn from that stuff too. And sometimes I think there's more to learn from that than if everything always goes right.
It's so funny too. So a big journey that I've been on. And again, I'm from Chicago, so like I always joke like, what am I going to manifest? A sunny day? Like I didn't know anything about open-mindedness and awareness and positive
Yeah.
mindset. But
Yep.
Since working in health and wellness and in personal development, certainly, like
Mhm.
it's funny now that I'm just like, oh. I'm just having a dopamine drop. That's literally, I didn't get what I wanted, so it's a dopamine drop. So
Uh-huh.
let's get past that. What's the lesson here? What's the gift, right? Where I'm like, oh, this is great. Like I didn't make money this week because the lesson was it's okay to sit. It's okay to just watch a movie a little bit, and it's okay. And also I like. So this week has been a slower week for me. I've had record-breaking months. It's really the past 2 weeks have been slower. And it's because I was offering something that I like, but I don't love. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to offer this a lot, but it's been draining. So I
Yeah.
I lost momentum and energy to sell things because I
Right.
was selling the wrong thing.
Uh-huh.
So it was just like a side, like an offering that I was doing, and I was doing a
Oh,
lot
okay.
more of them. So the
Uh-huh.
point is that I'm like, yeah, like fucking up has taken on a whole different meaning. As long as
Mm.
you're not hurting someone, right? Like, oh, I
Yeah.
did this thing and this person lost a leg. Yeah, you fucked up at that point. Like you should
Yeah.
have. But oftentimes we don't make people lose legs, right?
Yeah. But you know what? I think that's the beautiful thing too, because I think that everything is trial and error. That's what life is all about. Trial and error. If something works out, fantastic. If it doesn't, well, okay, let's figure out what happened and then do something differently. And I don't necessarily think of it as doing something wrong either, and for me it's also a lesson on trust, and trusting that everything that you need will be there and will show up when you need it. And I think it was last year or the year before. I was always trying to figure out how much I was making, and then I would get panicked. And then I was finally like, I'm exhausted. I can't do this anymore. And then at the end of the year, what I realized was that I made the most money I'd ever made in my life. And it was like, you know what?
By not
Just
pushing?
trust it. Yeah, yeah. Allow yourself to just chill. There are certain things that are helpful to do, but in the end, it's really important to be able to trust and say, okay, I've done this thing and this thing and this thing, and I've put these mechanisms in place, to help support me in making money or whatever it is. And so I am just going to trust that they're going to do their job and that it's going to work out. And yeah, I'm also going to offer some things and realize, you know what? Even though I thought I was offering that and it was cool, it really isn't as cool as I thought it would be. So here, let me tweak it a little bit so that it feels better to me, so that I can offer something new.
Oh my God, you are like a professional forgiver.
Oh
And
my gosh.
and
Yeah.
I want to tie it in too. Like I want to find that like I want to tie it in back to your story. But this is like, just for me, I got to tell you, like what you said has freed me up so much in this minute.
Yay!
Yay! Thank you. I've been like in March, April, May, I started having record breaking months, and then ending in June, I was more focused on moving to the house, making sure my daughter's okay in her new environment.
Right.
All the while COVID's happening. And then again, July, August, record breaking months.
Mhm.
And then I was just exhausted this month. And like,
Yeah.
I didn't want to admit it. And I was like, I don't want to, I just want to make my living, I just want to make my base this month, like cover all all my expenses, have a little bit more. But I was like, is that wrong? Like,
Mhm.
I was like, I'm just so sick of like, because I've always been creatively driven, and
Mhm.
the work I do now is very creative. And I like, when I step back, I'm like, oh, I want to work with 30 people this month. When I
Mhm.
think about it in those terms, instead of I gotta make this much money, like that's
Mhm.
so inauthentic to me, and that's how I've been driving the summer.
Right. Yeah.
And this morning, so again, it's always funny to me when I hear myself saying this coming out of my mouth, like this morning in meditation, what came up for me was, as I'm making a shift in my pricing, and I'm working with a coach and helping with pricing and stuff. I was like, whoa. I was like, why are you having resistance? Why can't you just ask to meet the people that are fine with this new amount of money? Because a lot of people think it's valuable. So, like, no one's arguing with me that it's not valuable at this point.
Right. Mhm.
But I was like, why can't you just ask the universe for that? Just meet more people that are like, yeah, I'll pay that. Because I've had
Yeah.
people say, no, Ron, I'm not paying that. I'm going to pay more. I've had
Mhm.
that this year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'll take it.
All
Um,
right. Oh, you go, boy.
thank you. Thank you. um,
Awesome.
but
Yeah.
so, but it's just so funny that I say that, again, it's like, it's so easy to fall into that trap of I'm doing something wrong. I'm doing something wrong. I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
How did you, so you get your license as a massage therapist. And again, I see you, honestly, I see you as this great healer of like the soul. Like literally, I just want to know, like, where can people go? Both I would say, but like, I'm so curious, like, I always wanted you to be this amazing guru without being like an official, like, you know, masculine energy guru. Like, I want
Yeah.
people to have access to you because you are such a healer. But how did you go from massage therapy to this gorgeous, like beautiful light, this like warmth, this like caressing energy that you are now?
Oh, thank you. Oh my God, you're awesome. Thank you. Gosh. Oh, you're so sweet. Actually, I think it was literally just me being curious. And just gravitating towards, and taking classes and workshops in things that really spoke to me on a deeper level. I'm really curious. And my idea of a great time is going to a workshop, and if I want to get real fancy, I'll go to a workshop in a really cool place, but I've always been interested in the human condition. And I think that, I've always felt that it was important for people to be seen. And I think it's also important for people to love and accept themselves just for who they are. And I think part of the reason why I offer what I do is because for a long time I didn't feel okay. I'm just gonna own it. And I don't think I'm the only one. I think that there were ways in which I tried to live my life under a radar, I spoke earlier about being a chameleon, trying to fit into other people's, trying to live my life in a way that made other people comfortable, but ultimately it didn't make me comfortable. And I'm also a person who can be really, really, really hard on myself. And there just came a point where it's like, well, what good is that doing me?
Thank you so much for saying that. Oh, sorry to cut you off. Thank you so much. I think it's important that people hear that. That like people, I think the authentic people, like the sincere people that move towards healing and helping others, if you can acknowledge, I know so many therapists that are the least examined people on earth. You know what I mean? Like they're just like separating themselves, and they're doing this thing so that they can protect themselves and not do the inner work. Thank you for saying that this training and this curiosity drove your actions to become this amazing helper, all the while you were not always kind to yourself, and all the while you weren't always in alignment with your true intention. That's huge. Thank you for doing that.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. Yeah. Well, I think it's important for us to know, because some of the most amazing people that I know that I would trust with my life because of their wisdom are people who have gotten dragged, who've gotten dragged by life, and who have had a lot of challenges. And I don't believe in perfection anymore. And I think that I also don't believe in projecting yourself as being an all-knowing, because the fact of the matter is, what works for me may not necessarily be what works for you. And it's important that you figure out what works best for you. I can help support you on that journey, but the work is yours.
And is and that's coming from a place of curiosity, right? Like I always joke with my clients, I'm like, okay, I'm going to mansplain you for a second. Can I mansplain you? Okay. And they're always like, what the fuck? Like, what do you just say what you want to say?
Right?
I'm like, no, I got to mansplain. And I'm like, you are awesome for this reason. Now my clients are watching this, they're going to be like, what the fuck? I thought that was for me. Okay. So what, like, what do you do now? Like you're a coach, right? How do you help people now? Like what's your process? What's your modality now that you've come to this realization, that you've come to these skills?
Oh gosh. Well, I do a lot. Yeah. I help people to connect with themselves more fully through a sensed and felt experience. I do it through primarily Maya Abdominal Massage work. I do it through breathwork. I do it through movement. I also do it through whole health coaching as well. And when I say whole health coaching, what I mean is life coaching from more of a visceral perspective, helping people to connect more with their bodies, because I do think that when we can connect more fully with what we're sensing in our bodies, that's where our truth lies. And if we can learn to flex that muscle, then then we will go farther faster, and we will connect more deeply and fully in ways that are more meaningful.
And I bet you probably saw that, right? Like in massage work, in body work, you probably saw how much storage is happening in the body, and then.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, massage school was absolutely life-changing. I came out feeling completely different than when I went in, and left feeling more self-acceptance than I ever had before. And I was just sort of like going, well, what is this? What is this connection? And at that time, when I was in massage school, the idea was, or at least the instructors would say, well, do not blend massage with other kinds of modalities, especially like, say, if you're doing therapy or something like that, don't blend the two, or don't offer the two. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, why? Because if I've got a client that's on my table and I'm working on a particular area, and I know that there are areas of the body where if I push here, it triggers this response, or this calls this question up, or this may refer to this kind of feeling or reaction. Why not use those tools? And I've gotten such wonderful results from clients, just being able to connect them more fully with their bodies in that way.
Oh, and that's so perfect, and I can imagine that it's so effective for people too, that like cognitive behavioral therapy, talk therapy, that might not, like, not everyone's a talker.
Mm-hmm.
So I can imagine, yeah.
Well, no, I didn't mean to interrupt, but yeah, not everybody's a talker. Or you could have been like me, where I spent 20 years in therapy, and I finally quit because I was lying. I was, I realized that I was telling people what I thought they wanted to hear, and I was responding in ways that I wanted to respond, but I really didn't have the groundwork to act on. And so I always felt that I was broken.
Yeah. And yeah, it's easy. I mean, it's easy to fall into that trap. I have so many clients with the work that we do in storytelling coaching and performance coaching and all this stuff, where it's like, you can't, I don't attack them, but I'm like, no, you're not excited about that. I'll say something like that, right? And then, or like, no, you don't really believe that, do you? Like, is that, and then floodgates, right? And then they'll say to me, I've heard this a lot this year, where they go, I've gotten more in a few sessions of fucking public speaking coaching or blog coaching or whatever, than I've gotten more from these than in therapy.
Oh, fabulous.
And that's, and no disrespect to therapy, I know a lot of amazing therapists,
Yeah.
like that's not the case with them, but it makes sense that, again, for some people, the work that we do it just opens them up more. So my final question is, how do people get a hold of you? I want people to run to you. Like, how do people come to you?
Yeah. The way people can get a hold of me is going to my website, www.nataliegentry.com, or you can email me at natalie@nataliegentry.com. Not very original, but at least it's direct. Yeah, and so those are the two best ways. And right now I'm in the process of actually changing up some of the things that I offer, because I am going to be offering more life coaching. I'm going to be, and I am also creating more programming where we can work with the body, and also with this coaching as well. So there are some things that are going to be changing, and if people are interested and they're not seeing what they need on my website, just have them email me, and we can have a conversation.
Oh, like, please do. If you're watching, like, please do. Like, for those of us that are like self-help junkies, as it were, like go to Natalie, because like, again, you see, like, it's like, you see just how warm you are and how kind and forgiving and effective, right? The body doesn't lie. Like, and so it seems like it's such an organic, holistic process to break free of a lot of stuff that's been holding us back. So, oh my God, Natalie, thank you so much for your time today. You are just lovely.
Oh, thank you. Oh, it's so fun to talk to you.
Anytime.
Oh my gosh. Well, I look forward to another time when we can connect in the future.
Absolutely. You can be a regular on the show.
I love it. We need to have some coffee and talk.
Of course, with this, it's on the book. It's in the books. Social distance coffee.
Seriously, right?
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Natalie. You're the best. Contact Natalie.
Thanks.